Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will meet Danish officials next week to discuss rising tensions over Greenland. This comes as Washington continues to show interest in acquiring the strategic Arctic territory. Venezuela's Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello says a U.S. military attack that captured President Nicolas Maduro killed 100 people and wounded dozens. He called the attack on Venezuela terrible. U.S. President Donald Trump signs a memorandum ordering the United States to withdraw from 66 international organizations, saying they no longer serve American interests. The White House says the move targets dozens of UN and non-UN bodies. A U.S. immigration officer fatally shot a woman in Minneapolis with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, saying the officer defensively shot to protect himself. The woman has been identified as 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. Authorities in Burkina Faso have said that they foiled a coup attempt late on 3rd January involving planned targeted assassinations of civilian and military leaders, including an alleged plot to kill head of the state Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Some arrests are underway as Burkina Faso continues to face political instability since Traoré seized power in the 2022 coup. Jordan and the European Union will hold their first ever bilateral summit in Amman, bringing together Jordanian King Abdullah with European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The landmark meeting builds on the January 2025 Strategic and Comprehensive Partnership, which includes a €3 billion EU assistance package. Now for this hour, we start with Greenland. Tensions are rising over Greenland as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirms a meeting next week with Danish officials. The U.S. continues to discuss acquiring the strategic Arctic island, with President Donald Trump reiterating his desire to control Greenland, citing national security concerns. While Trump has floated the idea of purchasing Greenland, he has not ruled out military options. Denmark, which governs the autonomous territory, has pushed back, saying it's ramping up security in the region. Let's listen in to what the U.S. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has said.
Well, that's something that's currently being actively discussed by the president and his national security team. And I would point out that the acquisition of Greenland by the United States is not a new idea. This is something that presidents dating back to the 1800s have said is advantageous for America's national security. The president has been very open and clear with all of you and with the world that he views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
Greenland's government will join the talks, hoping to normalize relations with Washington. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has voiced support for Denmark, rejecting any foreign claims over the territory. The situation is sparking new fears within Europe about U.S. intentions in the Arctic region. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Adrian Calamel. He's a terrorism scholar, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Calamel, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how is this rising tensions between Greenland and European allies of Denmark, including Denmark, yes?
Yeah, great to be on again with you, Asuma, and good morning to you, all your viewers. And yeah, this is an interesting situation, and Karoline Leavitt, you know, she does make a good point when she says that, you know, the U.S. dating back to, it was first floated when the U.S. purchased Alaska from Russia. But it never came to fruition. Then during World War II, when the Nazis occupied Denmark, then the United States came to the collective defense of Greenland. So we've always kind of recognized the strategic importance of it. And then you look in 1946, there was a formal offer by the Truman administration to actually buy Greenland. I believe it was $100 million in gold. So it's there. It's been out there. I wish the Europeans and the United States would work together on this. There's the whole complicating issue of Greenland. Greenland did gain home rule in 1979, and they're at times at odds with the Danish government and with the Europeans, and also they're kind of stuck in the middle. And I think the best resolution to this is that the U.S. works together so that Greenland benefits from this purchase, so that Greenland can be developed and the people can reap the benefits of some of the natural resources that are there. It's not only national security, it's natural resources, it's also shipping lanes, but also the competition in the Arctic Circle. The EU, Europe is always concerned, and rightfully so, about Russian aggression. Well, kind of the tip of that spear for Russian aggression may seem to be Ukraine, but the other part that people have kind of avoided and not spoken about for years has been in the Arctic Circle. And Greenland is important to combat that.
Right. And what role should Greenland's autonomous government play in negotiations involving larger powers discussing its future, which is going to be happening soon between Denmark and U.S.?
Yeah, it's I will be absolutely honest. It's when home rule is granted, it's difficult. It's different from one country to another, such as like when Ireland was granted home rule, or when Greenland was granted home rule. The Greenland situation is different than Ireland. It's not. It doesn't seem to have the full autonomy that let's say Ireland does, or the Republic of Ireland. So when we look at Greenland in this situation, if I was the United States, I'd be trying to work both sides here. If I was Trump, I'd be saying, listen, this really helps us. It helps the Europeans, and also it helps Greenland. It helps a place that's really kind of been looked at as a backwater and kind of neglected, and then eventually given home rule, but just not a whole lot of investment into the area as far as developing natural resources and then reinvesting it into the region.
And lastly, Mr. Calmel, what do you feel? What do you think the timing of this right after U.S. Taking the Venezuelan leader? Do you think this further has affected how Greenland and other countries around the world are reacting to this? Him or Trump eyeing Greenland, because of course he has mentioned Greenland in his first term and now again in the second term, and also other leaders of US have also talked about Greenland before. But I feel like, or do you feel like the tensions leading to right now Trump eyeing has changed the context of how people or the countries react?
Yeah. One of the problems I've had with Trump's foreign policy, and I think many people have pointed out, it's very transactional. When we look in the case of when he deals with his allies, it's transactional in the form of carrots and not sticks. When he deals with his enemies, it's more transactional, where it's more sticks than carrots. So I do think that he's serious about this, and by all means he wants an economic, this to be resolved economically, or at least the U.S. did have more bases there. It was up to 3, I believe, at one point. It's dwindled down to 1 base. It's been really scaled back. And so we need more of a forward posture. If we're going to guard our hemisphere, such as in Venezuela, we need to be guarding the entire hemisphere. It's not just the southern hemisphere, it's also the north of the hemisphere as well.
Right. Thank you for highlighting.
Whether that'll influence, I'm sorry, and whether that influence Europe, you know, I think the message should also be, it really does send a strong message to Russia, I think, as well, about U.S. intentions, saying, you know, we're serious about countering your actions in the Arctic.
Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Caramel. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on, the White House has confirmed the seizure of an oil tanker in the North Atlantic, which initially claimed to be Russian flagged, has been deemed stateless after flying a false flag. U.S. authorities say the vessel, part of Venezuela's shadow fleet, was involved in transporting sanctioned oil. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt stated the crew would face prosecution as the vessel was under a judicial seizure order. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also confirmed that Venezuela's leadership is now cooperating with the U.S., acknowledging that working with Washington is the only way to avoid economic collapse and continue oil exports. Let's listen into what the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had said.
As we move forward, we'll describe our process, which is a threefold process in Venezuela. I've described it to them now. Step one is the stabilization of the country. We don't want it descending into chaos. Part of that stabilization, and the reason why we understand and believe that we have the strongest leverage possible, is our quarantine. As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Caramel. He's a terrorism scholar from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Caramel, for staying with us. Now, what more can you tell us about this, the 2 tankers that were seized by U.S.? And also, is there any proven connection of it with Russia?
Yeah, this is a very interesting situation. So we had the seizing of a fleet a little while ago, the Skipper, now the Bella 1. The second one, it almost seems like a probe by the Russians. After the first seizure, and it was to see what U.S. intentions were, because we have sanctions in place, and we had sanctions, and these sanctions existed. Some have been were put in place during the Biden administration, but they weren't executed or they weren't enforced. So they're meaningless at that point. And what happens is this oil is sold on the black market. So, as you rightly said, this was part of Russia's ghost fleet, but I should clarify, it's more of a network of ghost fleets of sanctioned oil that moves around between countries that have their oil sanctioned on the market, such as Venezuela, such as the Islamic Republic, such as Russia. And so this oil, to give you an example, it hurts Russia because it possibly brings them to the negotiating table in the Ukraine. They're not going to be able to get access to cheap sanctioned oil. That's one thing. It hurts China and Iran at the same time. This oil is being moved to China in a lot of cases, this whole network that works together. And then because Venezuela owes so much money to the Islamic Republic, China is sending with the oil as payment from the Islamic Republic via Venezuela, weapons and or rocket fuel to build up the ballistic missile program is being done in the Islamic Republic. So it's a cycle, as you can see, a network. And I think the net result of it is you have that bad side of what this looks like, but you also have a good side where you can take this oil that has been frozen because of sanctions, sell it at market price instead of half the price, such as what Russia does on the market with their oil. It helps Venezuelans. Their oil is not being paid off as debt that the country owes to another country. It's oil that's being sold on the open market that they can use to rebuild the country and not descend into chaos.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Mr. Caramel, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news. Always great learning from you. Meanwhile, the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, has stated that the crew would face prosecution as the vessel was under a judicial seizure order. Let's listen into what the White House press secretary has shared.
Yeah, so the U.S. is selectively rolling back sanctions to enable the transport and the sale of Venezuelan crude and oil products to the global markets. Yes. Right. So as you know, Ed, as the president announced last night, this was the sanctioned oil that was basically just sitting in barrels, sitting on ships because of the effective quarantine of the United States of America. And the interim authorities have agreed to release that oil to the United States. So it will be arriving here at home very soon. All proceeds from the sale of Venezuelan crude oil and products will first settle in U.S.-controlled accounts at globally recognized banks to guarantee the legitimacy and integrity of the ultimate distribution of proceeds, and those funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the United States government.
Now, it jeopardizes future economic opportunities. The U.S. is now the only country not part of the UNFCCC treaty. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us once again. Good to see you.
Thank you, Asuma. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for your morning show. Please go ahead. Ask me any question, please.
Yes. Looking at this now, what are the political consequences of U.S. withdrawing from all these frameworks for climate change? Do you think that this will affect other countries? Do you think other countries might follow suit?
There are two subparts in your question, but there is a invisible subpart also which I'll touch upon. Firstly, the consequences of this particular move by US, it is disastrous. It is going to lead the world order to much more polarization, much more division, much more self-centric activities driven by the national interest of respective countries. Common challenges will remain an ever-growing challenge in the world order. Call about the terrorism, call about the climate change, call about the pandemic. These kind of things will not have any collective counter strategy to be addressed. This is the first and foremost thing. Second thing you have asked about, will it have any ramification or will it act as a trigger for other countries to follow suit? Yes, certainly they will get ideas. If superpower is doing like this, then what obligation do they have to be a member of an organization which is not accountable? A superpower has got military might. It is the largest economy as far as the nominal terms are concerned, $30 trillion economy. And it's still, despite the fact China is leaving USA behind in many components and aspects, it's still the accomplished leader in technology, in military might, in space, in nuclear energy, and a host of other issues. It has led the world order to some semblance of normalcy comparatively, I would say, although the 2.0, Cold War 2.0 has been fraught with lots of ups and downs and turbulences. It has not been able to demonstrate its efficiency as a unipolar world. So under the circumstances, rather than pulling back from all the global entities, UN-based organizations, I would still feel that, you see, what Donald Trump is trying to do, it's trying to cleanse the system, which has been piling up since 1776, since the independence of USA, and past 200 plus years in the country. Talk about the constitution, talk about the economy, talk about everything, because he has to realize that every superpower or global power has got a time limit. The time has come, and it will do good to him and the country if he gracefully accepts the same and encourages diplomacy and dialogue, engages with country, not arbitrarily announce that it is going to capture Greenland, despite the fact that they know that Greenland is part of, it's a semi-autonomous province of Denmark. Denmark is member of NATO, USA is a founding member of NATO. So such kind of stupid executive orders will definitely have a negative spiral. The third thing which you are not asking, if you have time and if you allow me, I would like to dilate on the issue.
Please go ahead.
You see, the USA, it is to be understood. USA has been encircled by forces inimical to it. What are the forces? You have Russia, you have China, you have Iran, you have Hezbollah there in Venezuela, and some of my old colleagues, they have been saying Hamas also footprint has been seen. Wagner of Russia is already there in Venezuela. Drugs are actually penetrating into America, fentanyl, and you have that, what do you call that? The precursor chemical for fentanyl comes all the way from China. It is produced in Colombia, then it passes through the conduit or the node in Mexico, then it goes into US. In 2022-23, there are about 1 lakh, some sources say 9,000, some sources say 1,11,000 people who died. In 23-24, 44,000 people died. 24-25 figures haven't come, but unofficial figures are indicating 65 to 75,000 people have died. And there are a large number of people who are homeless and who have no employment. They're addicted. They're under the detoxification camp treatment. So under these circumstances, and Russia has penetrated, there is a kind of a insurgency which is being fomented in California. Similar kind of activities are taking place. Every major town in America has got a Chinatown. Every province. And that Chinatown has got a hand, and they have got a new policy known as, this is called the Island of Resistance. What is island of resistance? Island of convenience. What is island of convenience? Island of convenience is Han Chinese. They are inducted incrementally into such China camps or China towns, and they are encouraged to marry the indigenous population of that country. This is a slow poison which is creeping in, and China has already bought large chunks of land in Africa, 7% of land. They're buying in large chunks of land and real estate in America. So America has got surrounded all over. The economy is failing, and the gun culture is, it hitting the innocent small children every now and then, every month or once in 2 months. And you have things like, he has opened up such multiple fronts. You have the tariff, you have a host of other things. He's getting after India for no reason. So under these circumstances, there is an old saying, Asuma, if I may, and I'll sum it up here. When a tree falls, it makes a lot of noise.
Yes.
When it grows silently. I think that should answer all your questions. Till now, back to you.
Thank you for sharing that. And Major General, lastly, so you building on your answer, as you mentioned, this is like the last streak of U.S. Enjoying its hegemony or the public show of force. Do you think this, before the world or as the world now shifts to a new world order, as it seems, do you think it's inevitable that, every world order before it shifted to a new world order, there has been big wars, there has been something big. Do you see it coming? What's your take? Do you think this shift the transition will be smoother?
No, the parallel that we can draw is take your mind back to First and Second World War. You had similar kind of clear signatures and indications. Where you found that the alliances and grouping affiliations, they were changing very, very frequently. There was a polycentric world way back in First World War. Same thing happened in Second World War. A country like Germany, at one point in time, it was signing no war pact with USSR. And before USSR could realize, it had decided to attack USSR. Those kind of things. So changing affiliation, the Allied and the Axis forces were changing the affiliation very fast now and then. So these kind of things are started manifesting. This is a polycentric signature. In my opinion, the global order is heading for, definitely, if you join the dots of the history of warfare, you find we are heading towards a kind of a conflict, a global conflict. Or some experts say the global war is already on. East Europe and Middle East and India and Pakistan and South China Sea, it is already on. In the 21st century, this is the new normal of global. You have isolated regional conflict, that is called a global conflict. No, when we talk about the global conflict, the area of conflict remains common and same. and you have all countries or relevant countries participating in groups. So those kind of affiliations have not taken place. Why it is not taking place is because today's global apex organization and architecture, they are based on transatlantic organization, which came into existence post Second World War. The transatlantic relationship is falling apart, and Donald Trump willy-nilly is clearly indicating that it is disregarding NATO. So NATO has been left in a lurch. So under these circumstances, talk about the United Nations or Security Council or World Health Organization or World Bank or IMF or ADB, any organization or ICC, none of them will be effective on ground if this transatlantic becomes weaker. So the national security strategy of USA of 2025 is a clear benchmark as far as my analysis goes. It clearly says that Russia is being brought on board as a peer member, despite what it has done as far as the Western alliances are concerned. I'm neither in support of Russia nor in support of Western alliances. We are in support of peace as far as India is concerned. Second thing is China has been left to fend for itself. It has been told, you please do anything with Taiwan, no eyebrows will be raised, but don't dare to come across Atlantic and come into the Monroe Doctrine or vitiate or violate the Monroe Doctrine of America. Should you do that, then America will retain the authority and justification to take countermeasure. If this is a new understanding, then there is a G3 grouping which is emerging, America, Russia and China. When G3 groups are emerging, this is Asia century. The economy, geoeconomics has overtaken geopolitics. BRICS is a rising organization. It is having its GDP comparatively in the world order has gone up to almost close to 43 to 46%, while way back in 1995 it was just about 16%. The leading economies was 43.04% way back in 1995, and it has come down to less than 30% comparatively. And therefore, when you compare all this, you find the global south is emerging much more powerful and stronger. In times ahead, either we create a new institution.
Major General, unfortunately, we're running out of time for this discussion, but please stay with us and thank you for sharing that. Now we move on to U.S. Officials have confirmed that a U.S. immigration officer fatally was shot. Has shot 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis during a major ICE operation. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has said the officer acted in self-defense after the woman allegedly attempted to run him over. The Department of Homeland Security called the shooting preventable but said operations would continue. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has disputed the federal court account and demanded that ICE agents leave the city, saying the use of force was unjustified. Over 2,000 federal agents have been deployed across Minneapolis and nearby St. Paul as part of an immigration enforcement operation. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has addressed the incident in a press conference, calling the federal action dangerous and sensationalized, and saying that the state does not need any further help from the federal government. Walz has said that his office has reached out to Secretary Noem but has not yet received a response, criticizing the operation for creating fear and escalating the tension. Now we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now looking at this, what do you think, what does this latest incident in Minneapolis once again reflects? How should responsibility and accountability handled by both federal and local officials?
Look, Asuma, firstly, we have to understand a government official on duty is being assaulted, he is being run over by a vehicle, no matter what the intention may be. And the government official is actually a serving member in the ICE. ICE is, this is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and it is the federal law enforcement. It is a federal law enforcement agency under the supervision of United States Department of Homeland Security, which is very tight and very, very stringent. So and the basic job is to enforce immigration laws. So immigration laws ensure security, safety, etc., and homeland security. So if you go through the mandate and if you find somebody A, B, C, D or X, Y, Z coming on a vehicle and ramming against a person who's on duty, on the face of the issue appears to be that the immigration official or the ICE official, he has acted in self-defense. So towards that end, what Donald Trump is saying may be right, but I think there is much more than what meets the eye. We need to join the dots. There is a bigger picture which is hidden at the moment. So it may be premature to make any comment on the issue. The full investigation must go through, because to me, my mind is actually going up to 2016, where similar kind of attack had taken place. A lorry was loaded with steel beams, and there was a lone wolf driver who was driving the lorry. He just drove it into people who, the revelers, Christmas revelers, and killed 86 people in Paris, and 286 they were injured. Almost close to that date, similar thing took place in Germany. And also, they both were found out to be having links with ISIS. Both were Tunisian, and later it was realized that they had been radicalized. They had been indoctrinated through the process of social media and internet. Similar thing took place last year, 2025 January, in New Orleans. An ex-serviceman or a veteran who's from para-SF outfit of the Special Forces of United States, a retired person, a veteran, driving a vehicle into a couple of people. He killed 5-6 people, if I remember correctly, in New Orleans. So this is the new normal of attack taking place in Europe, in America. There is much more. I think we need to look, even if it is not there, we need to suspect that there is an ISIS angle into it, discount it after investigation. At the moment, on the face of it, it appears that whatever the immigration official has done, he's done it in self-defense. Had he not done it, perhaps he would have been killed.
Yes. Thank you for highlighting that. We will be eyeing this news as it develops. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudhakarji for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.